All right, so you've sent over like a whole stack of articles about tire safety, and specifically here in the UAE. I have to say, digging into this stuff has been, well, pretty eye-opening.
It is fascinating, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. There's so much to consider. I mean, beyond just, making sure your tires are inflated.
Right, exactly. It's not just a one-size-fits-all situation, especially in this region.
That's what I was thinking. So I think our mission here today in this deep dive is to really pull out the most important information, the stuff that you absolutely have to know to be tire safe, particularly in the UAE.
Definitely. I think what's really striking is how the UAE's climate and also all the regulations, they all come together to create this very specific context for tire safety. It's not something you can ignore here.
No, not at all. And,
Right.
and the articles you sent really highlight that um, we're going to explore why tire safety is so crucial, like why it's not just a suggestion. We'll also look at the numbers, the stats that really paint a picture of the risks involved. And of course, we'll go over the essential regulations you absolutely need to know.
Sounds good.
Oh, and we've got some practical tips too, things you can do to stay safe on the road. Okay, so first things first. Why is tire safety in the UAE so critical?
I think if you look at the big picture, the defining factor here is the heat. It's the extreme heat we experience pretty much constantly. Tires are always under stress from the temperature, and this heat has a huge impact on how they perform, how long they last. Everything, really.
Yeah, and it's not just about your tires wearing out faster, right?
Yeah.
The numbers, the statistics, they're kind of alarming. Road Safety UAE says something like 5% of all traffic fatalities every year here in the UAE are because of tire problems.
That's a pretty big number when you think about it.
It is. And what's even more worrying, the Ministry of Interior reported 22 crashes in 2023, all because of blowouts. That's 22 incidents, potentially avoidable incidents.
Right, and I imagine many of those were probably due to the heat.
Yeah, that's my guess too.
You'd think drivers would be super careful, especially in the summer when it gets really hot. But I think a lot of people maybe just aren't aware of the risks.
Yeah. As the summer comes around and that risk of a burst tire goes up, the authorities have to really ramp up their inspections. It gets pretty intense.
Makes sense.
And the data backs that up. Over 18,000 violations were issued just in July of last year for unsafe tires. That's a huge number. Gives you an idea of how widespread this issue is.
Wow. So what happens if you get caught driving with unsafe tires?
Oh, it's serious business. Article 82 of the federal traffic law, that's the one you've got to watch out for.
What's the punishment?
500 dirham fine. 4 black points on your license.
Ouch.
Yeah, and your car gets impounded for a whole week. It's not something you want to mess with.
Definitely not. Okay, so we've established why this is such a big deal. But what does the latest data tell us about how safe tires are on UAE roads right now? What's the current situation?
Well, that 5% figure from Road Safety UAE about tire bursts causing deaths, that's still a major concern. Just to put things in perspective, back in 2018, the Ministry of Interior recorded 468 deaths from road accidents. Tire problems were a contributing factor in a good chunk of those. It's an ongoing problem.
I see.
And it's not just older cars either. There was this study by Continental back in 2019. They found that 44% of cars driven by students, university students, had at least one tire that didn't meet safety standards. 44%, that's like almost half. And experts are saying this is still a big problem even now in 2025.
So why do you think so many young people are driving around with bad tires?
Honestly, it's probably a mix of things. Maybe some just aren't aware of how important tire maintenance is. Others, it could be about the cost. Tires can be expensive, especially good ones.
That's true.
Maybe they think they can get away with it.
Or just don't know how to check their tires.
Yeah. Could be a lack of knowledge about basic car maintenance in general. Anyway, something to think about.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like the authorities are trying to crack down on this.
Oh, yeah. They're taking it seriously. The Ministry of Interior, they stepped up their tire checks in the summer of 2024. And guess what? Violations actually went up by 10% compared to the year before. They're finding more dodgy tires out there.
So it's a problem that's not going away.
Right. But here's a curveball. While all this is happening, while everyone's focusing on tire safety, the UAE tire market is actually booming. TechSci Research, they valued it at over $300 million in 2024. And they think it'll hit almost $456 million by 2030. That's a massive jump.
So more cars on the road, more tires being sold.
Exactly. And that's where it gets interesting. More people buying tires, hopefully that means they're investing in good quality ones. But a bigger market also means more chances for bad tires to slip through the cracks.
Oh, that makes sense. So it becomes even more important to make sure all these new tires meet the safety standards and to stop the dodgy ones from being sold.
Right. And that brings us to the regulations. What are the must-know rules about tires here in the UAE?
Well, the big boss in all of this is ESMA, the Emirates Standardization and Metrology Authority. They're the ones setting the rules.
Okay, so what are the key things that every driver in the UAE absolutely needs to know? Like
Right.
the non-negotiables.
All right, so number one, every tire, whether it's imported or sold here, has to have a certificate of conformity from ESMA. That certificate's basically saying that the tire meets all the safety and quality standards. No certificate, no go.
Got it. What else?
Then there's the tread depth. It's the law. For regular cars, the minimum is 1.6 millimeters. Now, that's the legal limit, but a lot of experts say you should change your tires before they get that worn down, especially with the heat and dry roads we have here.
So even if it's technically legal, it might not be safe.
Exactly. Less tread means less grip, especially if it rains suddenly.
That makes sense. Are there any other regulations we should be aware of?
Absolutely. This is a big one. Retreaded tires, they're mostly banned in the UAE. You can't import them.
No retreads at all.
Well, there's a tiny exception. For buses and trucks, some approved manufacturers can supply retreaded tires for certain uses. But for regular cars, nope, they're not allowed.
Good to know. Anything else?
Oh, yeah. Because of the heat, all tires sold in the UAE have to meet certain temperature resistance standards. And here's a crucial one. There's a maximum lifespan for tires, even if they look fine. 5 years.
5 years, regardless of how much tread they have left.
Yep, 5 years from the date they were made. That's it. The heat can damage the rubber over time, even if you can't see it. So even if your tires look okay, if they're older than 5 years, it's time for new ones.
Okay, that's really important information. A lot of people probably don't know that. What happens if you ignore all these rules, if you get caught driving with unsafe tires?
Well, as we said before, there are fines. Your car can get impounded. But the biggest risk is having an accident. A tire blowout can be really dangerous.
Absolutely. So you always want to buy your tires from authorized dealers, right?
Exactly. That way you know you're getting genuine tires that meet all the standards. You don't want to risk buying some cheap knockoffs that could fall apart on the highway.
Okay, so we understand the regulations. But what about everyday things drivers can do to keep their tires safe? What are your top maintenance tips?
All right, so being proactive is key here. First and foremost, tire pressure. You got to check it regularly, at least every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah, at least. And make sure you check them when the tires are cold. That gives you the most accurate reading.
Cold tires, check.
And get yourself a good tire pressure gauge. They're not expensive, and they can make all the difference. Don't guess. Check your car's manual or that sticker on the driver's side door jamb. It'll tell you the recommended PSI.
PSI.
Pounds per square inch. It's how tire pressure is measured.
All right, pounds per square inch. Got it.
Remember, the heat here makes your tire pressure go up, so checking when they're cold gives you the right starting point.
Okay, makes sense. So tire pressure, check. What about the tires themselves? What should we be looking for?
Right, so tread depth, that's super important. You can check it using the tread wear indicators. They're those little raised bars you see in the grooves of your tire. If the tread is level with those bars, you need new tires.
Okay, I'll check for those.
You can also get a tread depth gauge if you want to be extra precise, but honestly, those indicators are usually good enough.
All right, so what else should we be looking at?
Well, just take a good look at your tires. Are they wearing evenly? Do you see any cracks in the sidewall? Any bulges? Anything that looks off?
Any of that stuff means trouble, right?
Exactly. If you see any of those things, get your tires checked out right away. You probably need new ones.
Got it. So to prevent uneven wear, what can we do?
Tire rotation. It's a simple thing, but it makes a big difference. Every 10,000 kilometers or so, get your tires rotated.
Rotate them.
Yeah, just switch them around, front to back, back to front. That way they wear down evenly, and it makes them last longer, too.
So tire rotation every 10,000 kilometers. Check.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Oh yeah, wheel balancing, it's important. If your wheels aren't balanced properly, your car will vibrate and your tires will wear down unevenly.
Okay, so get the wheels balanced.
And every 15,000 to 20,000 kilometers, get your wheel alignment checked too.
Alignment, check. Is there anything else drivers should be thinking about when it comes to tire safety? Things they might not realize are important.
Definitely. A lot of people don't think about this, but overloading your car is a huge risk. If you put too much weight in your car, it puts a lot of stress on the tires, especially in the heat. You could easily get a blowout.
So how do you know how much weight is too much?
Check your car's manual. It'll tell you the maximum load your tires can handle. Don't go over that.
Got it. And I guess it goes without saying, but you should always buy good quality tires.
Absolutely. Don't skimp on your tires. They're literally what keeps you on the road. Stick with the reputable brands.
Mm,
Michelin, Bridgestone, Continental, those are all good ones. They make tires specifically for hot climates like ours.
no cheap knockoffs.
Exactly. You don't want to risk your safety with some dodgy tires that could fall apart on you.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the heat, but let's really dig into how these crazy summer temperatures here in the UAE affect our tires specifically.
All right, so it's like this. In the summer, it's not unusual for the temperature to get above 45 degrees Celsius, and the road surface can be even hotter than that.
Wow.
Yeah. This extreme heat really takes its toll on your tires. It wears them down much faster. Bridgestone Middle East, they did a study, and they found that for every 10-degree increase in temperature, your tire pressure can go up by about 1 bar, which is about 1.4 psi.
So if it's 45 degrees outside, that's a pretty significant increase in pressure.
Right, and if your tires are already overinflated or if they're damaged or worn out, that extra pressure makes a blowout much more likely.
Especially if you're driving fast or for a long time.
Exactly. That's why it's so important to keep checking your tire pressure and to change your tires on time, both because of tread wear and because of that 5-year age limit. That's your best protection against heat-related tire problems.
All right, so let's do a quick recap, just to hit on some of the most common questions people might have about tire safety in the UAE. What are the most important regulations to remember?
Okay, the big ones. Minimum tread depth, 1.6 millimeters. Every new tire needs a certificate of conformity. And retreaded tires are no-no for most cars.
Got it. And how often should drivers be checking their tires?
Tire pressure every 2 weeks. Tread depth, check it visually at least once a month. Tire rotation every 10,000 kilometers. And get your wheel alignment checked every 15,000 to 20,000 kilometers.
Okay, and when do you absolutely have to replace a tire here in the UAE?
When the tread depth gets down to 1.6 millimeters, that's the legal limit. But remember, because of the heat, you should also replace your tires after 5 years, even if the tread still looks okay.
Okay, and just to remind everyone, what happens if you get caught driving with unsafe tires?
You're looking at a 500 dirham fine, 4 black points on your license, and your car could be impounded for a week. And the authorities are serious about this. They gave out over 18,000 violations in 2024.
Wow. So if we could boil everything down, what's the single most important takeaway for drivers in the UAE when it comes to tire safety?
Tire safety is not optional here. It's essential. The climate is tough on tires and the regulations are strict. You can't afford to ignore it.
So regular checks, following the rules, and buying good quality tires, that's the recipe for staying safe.
Exactly. Don't wait for a problem to happen. Be proactive. Check your tires, maintain them properly, and replace them when necessary. It's worth it.
Okay, so looking ahead, we have more and more cars on the roads here in the UAE, and climate change is only making things hotter. It makes you wonder what's next for tire safety. What new technology or new regulations might we need in the future to keep up with these challenges? Something to think about.
Absolutely. It's an important question. As technology evolves and we learn more about how the climate affects our tires, I think we'll definitely see some changes in the tire industry.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. It's been really informative.
My pleasure.
And to you, our listener, thank you for sending us these articles and for joining us on this deep dive. We hope this has helped you understand the ins and outs of tire safety in the UAE. Stay safe out there.